Hi guys, and welcome back to the Wolfpack. Today we are going to be starting a kind of new series, I guess you could call it, and it's going to be, as I'm sure you've seen by the title, my transfer targets for the summer. Just like to point out before we start, I'm no way in saying we will sign them, or even if we'll be able to sign them. These are just people that I would like to see at Wolves, and I think would and could do well for us, and the type of player we sort of need. So what we're going to be doing is going through 3 players each episode, a defender, a midfielder and an attacker, and they can be any sort of, across that line, so left back, centre back for the defenders, CDM, centre mid, cam, and obviously wingers and strikers and centre forwards and things like that for the attackers. But without further ado, let's get into the video. We're going to be starting from the front with 27-year-old Croatian striker Ante Rebic, who is currently playing his football in AC Milan. He plays a variety of positions across the forward line. He can play on the left wing, which is where he plays more predominantly, and he's played quite well this season, or he can play up front, and he has attributes for both positions. If he played on the wing, he could offer a bit of a difference between Neto and Podence. He's a different type of winger, quite tall, actually very tall, 6'1", and he has a very powerful strike while still being able to dribble at speed and skill out defenders. So I think he seems like a quite good player, and the stats back up that. He's had a great year in Serie A with 7 goals and 6 assists in only 22 matches, and some of them he hasn't even started, and then he's got an additional 2 assists in 5 games in the Europa League. He's valued £28 million on transfer market, and I just think that this is the kind of player that Wolves need. We need an alternative kind of forward. You've got the likes of Podence and Neto, who were skillful, quick, and things like that. But you've got, we've got no other sort of variety to that. Don't get me wrong. Our forward line is very good, especially with Adama Traore as well, who I forgot to mention, with his pace and his power. But I just think we need sort of a differentiation. Someone maybe a bit taller, a bit more a goal scorer from the wings, because Neto, Podence and Adama, they've been really good this season, but you could say they haven't chipped in with enough goals. I mean, Neto's been great, and he has scored a decent amount of goals, but probably not enough. So another goal scorer in the attacking line would be good, especially if we consider that Raul Jimenez may not come back the same after his injury, and as I mentioned, Rebic can play striker. So all the things add up for him to be an ideal signing. But without further ado, let's move on to my midfielder. So, as we move on from our striker target, we move on to the midfield, and surprise, surprise, he is Portuguese. One had to pop up in this video, didn't they? And he's 23 years of age. He's currently playing his football in the French league. Can you guess who it is? It is Renato Sanchez, and he's valued at £25 million. The 23-year-old currently plays for Lille. And he's had a fairly decent season. He's not started all the matches, but like many Wolves fans have seen, I'm sure you've seen, we have been rumoured with him in the past, not so much recently, but I do think this isn't just because we've been rumoured with him. I just genuinely do think he's the kind of midfielder we need. He's not tallest at 5'10", but he is defensive-minded, whilst can chip in with some goals. He's strong, he can dribble, he can pass. He's the kind of midfielder that Wolves need just to control and just to provide Neves and Moutinho, or whoever will replace Moutinho, as he looks to sort of maybe stop starting in the next year or so, as he starts to get older and maybe thinks about retirement. Whoever will play next to Neves, to give him a bit of space to do what we know Neves can do, that we've seen him do in the Championship and we've seen flashes of in the Premier League. So we just need a midfielder like that, and I think Renato Sanchez is the perfect guy. And now the downside to this is he wouldn't come cheap. I'm sure Lille would want closer to £35-40 million for him, considering he has had such a decent season and he's fairly wanted, and he's only 23 and he's been really sort of fairly key to them, doing well this year. So they probably want to keep hold of him, so he will be an expensive one to come. And he obviously had that stint in the Premier League at Swansea, which, really didn't work out very well, did it? He didn't do very well at all, unfortunately. So I think that it would be a risk, not knowing if he's going to perform in the Premier League. But then again, when he was at Swansea, he was young, and I think it's a risk we should be willing to take, and I think he is exactly the kind of midfielder we need. So without further ado, let's move on to my defender. So, as we move on to our centre-back, this is the one that I would like to sign the most. I think, I just think this guy is a really classy centre-back and is exactly the kind of thing Wolves need. I'm going to tell you who it is now. It's a Dutchman, and I've gone with Nathan Ake. The 26-year-old centre-back is currently playing in Manchester City, and he moved from Bournemouth in the summer for £40 million. And yes, I know, granted, he has had a few injury worries, but he just hasn't really got close to that City starting 11 with the ever so reliable centre-back partnership of Stones and Diaz staying strong so far this season. He's only 5'11", so he's not very tall, especially for a centre-back. But he is left-footed, which we know is ever so valuable in the Premier League, with you not getting many decent left-footed centre-backs. He's valued at £31 million, but City would probably be looking closer to what they bought him for if they were going to sell. So I think around 35 million, 40 would be reasonable for him. He does have Premier League experience, obviously playing with Chelsea and Bournemouth, and was a shining light in that sort of disappointing Bournemouth squad in some years that didn't perform well, and obviously did end up getting relegated. He's relatively quick and strong. I don't need to explain much about him. I'm sure you've seen him playing for Bournemouth. He's played 7 appearances this year in the Premier League, a few of them coming from the bench. I just think this is the kind of guy Wolves need. He's a player out of favour. He's a left-footed centre-back, and I think City might be looking to sell. Especially if they've paid all that money for him and he's not really turned out maybe how they expected or how they wanted. I'm not sure. And I have no insight on this, but I think the City could maybe be interested in a loan, with him still being fairly young for a centre back at 26. And maybe if they were looking to sell, then a loan would be good, because teams could maybe have an option to buy or an obligation to buy, or something like that. So let me know what you think in the comments with these choices. Let me know if you think these wouldn't fit, or let me know if you would love to see these players at Wolves. If there are any other players that you think are good, drop some ideas in the comments, and maybe we can pick them for the next episode for who I would like to see. But that's going to be it from me. Make sure to subscribe to the Wolf Pack down below, and also make sure to subscribe to my personal channel, The Old Gold TV, who's also got loads of good Wolves content on there if you do enjoy Wolves. But other than that, I'll see you next time.